Okay. This is, the title of this talk is Disrupting Realism, How Art Can Change Our Minds and Our World. And it's an illustrated talk. Every slide will have an image. And the text is the talk, and the image is just to excite you about art and what it can do. Sometimes they're related, sometimes not, but they're all examples of disrupting realism, in my opinion. And I'm not going to say, we could spend like 10 minutes on each image. Anybody that's been in art school knows this, right? So I'm just going to ask you to think of like, what is disrupting about this? I'll give you a bunch of information, but what is disrupting about this, what I'm showing you? What's odd about it? That kind of thing. So, and we can, at the end, so this is going to be about 50 minutes, aspirational 50 minutes. There's going to be 5 guests who are going to have 2 minutes just to talk about their own work. After that, I'm going to show you something that's 3 minutes and 39 seconds, and it'll be the best 3 minutes and 30 seconds of, well, your life, your year, your day. Seriously. I've watched it many times, and it's very important. It's very beautiful. So, and that's so you can stay, I would like you to stay to the end. Then we're going to have comments and questions. We have disrupted snacks. Oh, and I forgot, I am dressed. I just want you to know, yes. This is my disrupted, it looks like, it's a skirt. It looks like a skirt, but it's actually, sure.
We were shocked.
Well, I know, you don't usually see this. So, this is, there's usually something to do why I'm showing this image. This is Suzanne Lacey. It's there's nothing there. Let's put it on.
Speaking of disruption,
Here you go. Yeah, I should have that on. Some things I'm going to read so I don't screw them up. This is it's a performance piece. It's an interactive performance piece. It's a still from a video. It's called By Your Own Hand. It was shown it was done between 2014 and 2019. And I think, first of all, there was 10,000 women in Ecuador were asked to write letters about the violence that they experienced, the personal gender-based violence that they experienced. And then what happened when Suzanne got involved with it, and this was over 3 years, so not quick, but there was a 3-day event where 350 men came, and one by one they went to a bull ring in Quito, and read out the women's statements. That was so the women weren't going to read them out, so it re-triggered them. It was so men read them out. And there were workshops that went along with that, with the men. And one by one they did this, and then they would go into the audience and they would sort of intimately read the letter to somebody in the audience. The men that were reading it weren't the men that wrote the letters. Right. But so the reason I got it here is because I found this on an interview, and it was sort of like a Zoom lecture she was giving. And at the end, somebody said, well, did you go back after the 3 years and measure if the level of violence had gone down? And she said, it's like, this is just a few men, to change sexual violence is going to take everything forever, everybody doing something about it. But it's just a little thing. I mean, I think this is a lot, but in the scheme of thing. And that's why I'm just saying this talk I'm saying that art can change our minds and our world. It's a grandiose you know, a big statement. I think it can. But it's a talk in Metchosin. I hope you're excited about it. And I have a resource list at the end. So there's the images that I'll tell you who the art is, and you can just Google any of these names, you know, and then you just go down a rabbit hole forever. And besides the text, there might be a quote, but there is a resource list which is like really rich with where you can get more information. I think that was everything. Oh, and there will be nudity. I think that.
Ours?
Just a warning.
You're disrupting us.
So I just want to do a land acknowledgement. And we always do a land acknowledgement at ArtPod, but what I realize is I don't know why it's a land acknowledgement is an acknowledgement of people. It's not a land, it's land and a people. And here it's Yichianu First Nation. They're about 7 or 8 kilometers from here, the village site. I think Suk First Nation has a claim to this area as well. And we just really feel really grateful to be here on this land, but very aware of the people. I'm not going to read out all the names, but so many people are behind this. I guess I do want to mention Angela Menzies and Pirette Vizzini, because they are the curators of the show that this is part of. The show is called Distracted Abstraction, but actually the theme of the show is disrupted realism, and that's what I'm going to be talking about, although I've sort of changed it a bit. Lots of contributions from people, and also this is the short version. The 1.5 hour version had who is speaking, because I think it's really important that you know like who the painter is, who the artist is, who's speaking, who made the movie. So I cut that one out, but one of the things, I am a lifelong learner, and I had a working class upbringing, which means you have indoctrination. You don't have an education, indoctrination. So when I came to Canada in 1968, I've been in school ever since. I've been to BCIT, I've been to Langara, I've been to SFU, I'm still in SFU, I've been to Emily Carr. And now I'm in social practice school, which I'll tell you about later. My teacher is here, so I have to do well. And then we have guest artists who are actually either part of or former members of ArtPod or members of ArtPod, and they're going to show their work and just talk for a couple of minutes about how their work fits in with what we're talking about, disrupted realism. And all the artists that I'm going to be showing here, I'd like to, and in terms of copyright, which was worrying me, the book, there's 2 books that disrupted realism is basically comes from, and they're by John Seed. This is one of them. And I wrote to him and I said, can you give me permission to use some of the images from the book? And he said, you don't need images, it's like fair use. You know, they're in a book. I got everything here from the internet. I credit things. This is free, as you know. There's no money being made here. And then he not only said that, but he sent me a link to his Dropbox with all the images on, so I feel okay about sharing these with you. None of it is mine, it's just so I can say it's all brilliant work. So this is Charlene Vickers. It's called Sleeman Metchosin 2011, and it's made from beer cartons, denim, and glass beads. And I just want to read one of the things that was said. The moccasins may not be wearable, but they tell a story of power dynamics, loss of culture, and finding personal growth. She is an Anishinaabe artist, and she's based in Vancouver. And I think you find this a lot, this juxtaposition between one culture and another, or one identity and another in the art with materials or form. how this talk came about, Angela and Pierrette were doing the show, and it had abstraction in the title, and he said, "Oh, do you want to do a talk?" And it's like, I love abstraction, I do abstraction. I said, "Sure." Then I sent them a blurb, came up with a blurb, and they said, because they're really nice people, and they said, "That's really interesting, but could you actually talk about disruptive realism, as well, or sort of fit it in somehow?" And I knew nothing about it. So I've been doing nothing but in reading about it, and also I'm changing. This presentation will change the notion of it a bit. So that's how it came about. So I hope I'm a quick learner. And this, during this studying in the Globe and Mail, this is Parisa Azadi. She's an Iranian-Canadian photojournalist. Even her photographs are fantastic, again, if you go to her website. But this is a series that was in the Globe, and her focus is the violence against women and girls in Iran. And so not only do you have the photography, but what she does is she burns the edges. So there's sort of an embodied sense of violence in the pieces that she has. And there's a real, I don't know if I've even got, could talk for ages about this, but the process, what she does, she looks at the internet, finds videos, finds stills that depicts violence, and then she checks for authenticity. She makes sure you can't identify the people in the photos that she uses, because that would endanger people. And then she does things with them. She obscures their faces, she burns them, so this is some of the powerful images that she has. So again, you're thinking about what's disruptive about either the content, what the actual image is, who it is, where it is. I'm assuming we have a lot of, there's a shared assumptions that we have a curiosity and desire to know the truth. We just don't want to be in denial about existence, whether the universe, world, society, and ourselves, a desire to be and to do good and to do no harm. I mean, it's hard enough just to do no harm, let alone something more than that, and to make meaning from our lives. So I just thought that's a sort of a basic thing. We're doing ethics in our social practice class this week, so it's like, I think that's a little bit. And does everybody recognize? Do any people recognize this? Edward. I have to tell you. Where's Diane? Diane lives in East Souk. She's married to Richard Rhodes, who I know as Rick. I knew he knows something about art. So I went out to go over the talk with him, because I wanted to see what he thought of it. And we got to this one. He says, "Oh, Ed, I was on that shoot with him." This is Edward Baczynski. I might have not been very good with his name. And it's gorgeous. He does gorgeous. This is not from an airplane, but a lot of his images are of big sights, but from the air, and they are gorgeous in many ways. Patterns, composition, color. And then you find out what this is. This is a nickel tailings in Sudbury, Ontario, 1996. So it looks gorgeous, but then you know that it's an absolutely toxic river. And I don't know if you can tell how big that river is, but Rick said, you know how big that river is? It's from about here to there. Like, it's a stream, but it's like chock-a-block with this toxic. He doesn't, I have to read something he says, because Baczynski wants us to experience the shock of seeing as a fact of bright orange stream flowing through a leafless landscape, and to notice our own resistance to digesting this information. He's not given to aesthetic manipulations for their own sake, not even for emotional effect. So it wants you to think, and I think that's I think that, you know, best art makes us think. I mean, feel for sure, but think as well. Limitations. I'm framing limitations as a strength. And so we're mostly focused on one art form. And the way I sort of divided art is, and there's spatial things, there's objects, there's paintings, there's books, there's comics. And then there's temporal ones, you know, there's movies, there's things that move. You know, you have to sort of watch them. Music, dance, that kind of thing. And then there's a sort of the mashup of that. But so I'm focusing mostly on paintings or fixed artwork. I've already said I'm not an expert, and so I bring a beginner's mind. So I think that's the, you know, you make the best out of your limitations, and I think a beginner's mind is sometimes really helpful. It's one point of view, it's my point of view, and if I did this 3 months from now, like any of us, we would do a completely different presentation. I would find something else, I'd have a conversation and think something else. So, you know, this is today's version. And it is I'm trying to include a lot of non-regular, you know, dead white men in this, but it definitely is a Western art perspective. And one of the people I've come across recently, thanks to Nicole, is Jesse Grimes. And this is with limitations. He was a prisoner. He was an art student in California, but then got into drugs. Anyways, he was incarcerated for several years and was in isolation. So he didn't have very many materials, but what they gave the prisoners is 2 bars of soap every week. So, and Art was going to say, he figured out, like, how am I going to do this time? And he thought art was going to be the way, and he's a relentless worker. So what he did is he made slithers from the soap. This is his soap. And they're 1 inch by 1.5. And then he had access to newspapers and mug shots. And then he would transfer the image of the mugshot onto the soap with hair gel. And he said it was very funny because I think he didn't have much hair at the time, and he would keep going and getting hair gel. And it's very funny. And then he would smuggle them out. He would get playing cards because they had cards, and he would only use the face cards, Queen, Jack, King. Cut out the face and put this little slither of soap in, wrap it up, and he had ways to get it out of prison to show it later. But the point is, you don't need, Diana, tons of art supplies. You know, you do not need art material to make brilliant, wonderful. In fact, you know, limitations are a strength. And I just want to say something that he has said. This is called Part of Purgatory. The work was about deconstructing identity formation through the media. My entire practice revolves around challenging and critiquing that mediated system of creating identity formation, because that was so impactful in how I was constructing my identity prior to being in prison for the first time. You know, so once you're a criminal, there's nothing else, there's no humanity about you, there's nothing else about you. It's like a lot of things about people. And the other interesting thing, there's many interesting things, but one he was saying, in the old days, they used to get people, behead them in the public square. It was like a way to terrorize people. And he says mugshots are the way they do it now. Like it's like a decapitation. And, you know, you're labeled as a criminal, you know, with your mugshot. So, I mean, there's much more in it, but, and that's his real name, Jesse Grimes. I mean, really. So to the subject that the show was about, what is disrupted realism? The common understanding, I mean, just from the name, you can tell it's like there's realism, there's realism and abstraction. You know, those are sort of two big art kind of genres. And disrupted realism is something that's in between. It's like a fusion, it's a bridge between one or the other. And what it does is it's a fusion of elements in both form and content. It's about the objective world and non-objective. It's about depicting our inner subjectivity as well as maybe what we see outside. And it responds to the fragmentation and distractions of our world. And you can see from the subtitle of the first book, Disrupted Realism, Paintings for a Distracted World. And then this was in 2019, and the one that came out in 2003 is more of paintings. And so the first one is about 38, mostly artists from the US. And then the second one, there's more than half are not from the US, but it's very Western oriented. It's paintings. And there's quite a range of them. I'm going to just show you 3 of them. And I think one thing about it is they know how to paint, these people. They are just fantastic artists, but they've gone beyond that. They're disrupting what they know. It's like a classic pianist trying to do jazz. You know, you want to break it up. There's more that they want to do. So it was coined by John Seed, but it was suggested by Alex Kanevsky. And I will show you some of his work. So this is, I just picked out one of my favorite artists in the first book, Anne Gale. So the one on the left is Babs with Ribbons, oil on masonite. It's not very big, 14 by 11. The other one, Peter with Striped Kimono, 2014. That's a bit bigger. So what you can ask yourself is like, what's odd about these, or what's interesting about it? And what I did on that bottom, I've taken that, this is not bad resolution. This is how this painting is. The edges are blurred. So what's the statement that's being made between the subject and the wall behind them? You know, how do they do edges? And I put this other little one in. I don't know if people recognize. This is Alice Neal, figurative painter. She used to outline her things in blue paint. So there's different ways you can do edges. But what is the reason? Why does Anne Gale want to blur the edges? And why does, for instance, she has a different strategy? You know, and they work for different reasons, I think. And then every painter here and that I'm showing you has tons of influences. So I'm just on this one, it's the only one I'm doing. I'm going to show you. That's Lucienne Freud. What you will not see in this show is young, thin, skinny white women. Yes! This is Sue Tilley. It's called, I think, Building Super. Let me just get to my right page. Benefit supervisor sleeping. It was his benefit supervisor. So she got another job as modeling. That's Lucienne Freud. And the middle one is, that's Giacometti, Portrait of a Woman. And that's Rita. So it's based on a real woman, but you can see how it's all sort of, they're not exactly like a photorealist, not like a photograph. And then the bottom one is Antonio Lopez Garcia. And it's called Sinforoso and Josefa. Now I think Josefa is probably that person, but you don't say it that way. You have to say the man first. So, but I think you can see why she said there's influences there. So, and you can ask yourself, well, why's Peter got a striped kimono? Why has she got ribbons on her thing? Why is she wearing a bra? Usually you have naked, completely naked women. What's she wearing a bra for? It somehow seems to me just more an invasion of privacy when she's wearing some underwear rather than completely naked. So, but this is all choices that the artist makes. And this isn't in the book, but Alex Kanevsky's work is in the book. I just like this one particularly. It's called Red Shoes. It's on oil on mylar. Mylar is a polyester film. It's a lovely surface. If people do artwork, know it. It's a really smooth, silky surface to work on. But you say, why is it called Red Shoes? I mean, I don't think, one of the things, and I think I've got it here, one of the things Alex says is, what to his students, what is the subject? So I don't think the subject here is footwear. You know, so what is it? And you can ask that question of anything if you're sort of, if it's confusing. What is the subject? What's going on here? And another thing he said, I believe paintings function where words fail. And the reason I put his in there is because I saw it's on the resource list. He's done a lecture, it's called The Higher Aims of Art. And it's based on the Diebenkorn's 10 notes to himself before he begins a painter. Does anybody know those 10 notes? Good. I'm really glad at least it's like they are fantastic and they can apply to life. You don't have to be a painter for them to make sense, but I'll just read you out number 6 as a little teaser. Somehow, don't be bored, but if you must, use it in action. Use its destructive potential. So I just think that's lovely. And he is such a personable lecturer. Like if you just want, if you're like me in the evenings, you're tired, you don't want to sort of have, I don't know, watch another Vera. But you want something with substance. This is a great thing to watch.
So this is Kanevsky you're talking about?
Yes, he did the lecture. Yeah. The second book is this one, More Disruption. So there's more artists in here, it's paintings. And honestly, it was a coup because they have Jenny Saville. Is there anybody who knows Jenny Saville? How many people are familiar with? So some of you are and some of you aren't. Not everybody I love Jenny Saville. I think people who paint love Jenny Saville. Anyway, this is when she was came out of art school. I think this is the first painting that made her famous. It's called Propped. It's oil on canvas and it's 7 feet by 6 feet. So just imagine. And so it's gigantic. And so if you're a viewer looking at that, you're going to be looking up and she's going to be looking down at you, even though she's naked. And the proportions, it's like what's coming in your face is her knees. It's not her big breasts or anything, it's her knees that are coming, that's probably where the eye is. And you might notice that there's words at the back, but they're all reversed. So you can say, well, that's interesting. Why can't I read them? Why are they in reverse? So you'd need a mirror image. You'd need to have a mirror to look at it. And I'll just tell you what the words say. It's loose Iringe. If we continue to speak in this sameness, speak as men have spoken for centuries, we will fail each other. So very, just all about power. It's women painting themselves. This is a self-portrait. It's very powerful. She's deciding how she wants to be represented. And lots more like that. So, I'm calling this disrupting realism. I'm changing it from disrupted realism. But realism was a short, really, art movement with a capital R in the mid-1800s. And this, by Gustave Courbet, The Stone Breaker, 1849. Now, it's very realistic, so why am I putting this in here as disrupting realism? And it's because he had the audacity to just depict two working class peasants, ordinary people, doing ordinary, horrible toil. That's why he obscured the face. Not all 5 fingers or all our digits are there. This is very common. So people were thinking, nowadays, oh, maybe there was mutilation, maybe it was sacred, there were some sacred rituals where they chopped off fingers or something like that. But they said, no, what it was, they think, is a way to communicate. Now, where's Karen? You do, you know American Sign Language. Do you know what, does 3 fingers mean something? Is that a sign?
No, it's actually the letter W in finger spelling.
Anyway, the conjecture is this is communicating. If all a lot of them don't have all 5 fingers there, and it's a way of communicating, which art is all about. Communication. And the reason it's not, all this mutilation or accidents or things like that is because when you have handprints, they don't do it. It's more on the the negative stencil prints like this that it's not all 5 fingers are there. I mean, I'm probably spending much too long on this, but I just think that's really interesting. Okay. So, disruption is a characteristic, so it's past, present, and future. And one of the things I'm saying is it's not just a bridge. It's not disrupted realism. It's not just a way to bring abstraction and realism together. There's so much in that area. There's so much you can do with it. It has a room of its own. It shouldn't be just connecting 2 things. It's so rich as not a genre, but a way of making art, where you just can put everything in it. So I think if I was a good student, I'd have the proposition right at the beginning. You have a question, then you have the hypothesis and things like that. But what I'm saying is art and all forms can unsettle and challenge our understanding and experience of reality by showing that our conscious interpretation is biased, compromised, and partial, and then by providing an opportunity to change our minds and consequently our behavior. And the more we're able to think for ourselves, we'll be capable of putting ourselves in other people's shoes. And I think disrupting realism is art that can do this, which is what I'm going to try and show you. And so this is Ingres. I was learning to pronounce things correctly. An 1814 artist. And what I hope you notice from this, it's there's something, it's kind of odd. Now, it's not odd in an obvious way, there's not a frog on the person's head or something like that, but there's something odd about it. I don't have time. We can talk about it later, but art, good art they want to unsettle you, not provide answers, give you, the viewer, some way in to interact with it. You have a job to do, to there's communication here, but you have to do your part to meet the artist. I don't know if some of you know that, the Guerrilla Girls, this is 2008, what they did, they put that image on t-shirts, and what does I think it says, do women have to be naked to get into the Metropolitan Museum? And a lot of artists, they take these classics and then they do different things with them to question them or bring them forward or whatever. And this is Laurence Philomen, a non-binary artist living in Montreal, and it's part of a puberty series. And so you can see the posture is the same. And again, why are they doing that? What are they saying? By the way, the text there is... Oh, where is it? It's about... I have it here somewhere. Anyway, it's an ongoing, colorful autobiographical autobiographical self-portrait project that looks at the intimate and vital process of caring for oneself as a non-binary transgender person undergoing hormone replacement therapy. So, and as I said, this is the short version, and I think a talk is sort of a bit like performance art, really, you know, and I also see it as there's a jungle out there of, you know, forest, and what anybody does like this, they make a little trail through the woods, and they try to get you to come along with them, and you start it off, there is a trail, and we get to the other end, and we're all happy, nobody gets lost. So in the long version, I had a couple of swamp areas where you sort of go into the swamp, and this is one that I couldn't give up. You know, you have to give up all your darlings, and but this is one I didn't want to give up, and it's just to say what is art. And because I think I want a broad definition of what art is, because if you've got a broad definition, then it just there's so much more you can do with it. This is based on an essay by Richard Lind. I don't think he's a famous person particularly, but he's very well regarded as a philosopher. And I'm boiling it down, so bear with me. But an artwork is any discriminating creative arrangement of one or more media deliberately made whose principal function is to communicate an aesthetic statement. So it's an artwork, it's discriminating. So it's saying there's this rather than this. I'm noticing those shiny things on your sweater are catching my eye. So that's the perception, you know, that I get. But then I can go, then like there's, let me actually go back. So I'm discriminating that, but it's deliberately made, so it's like there's authorship. So the sunset is gorgeous and beautiful and wonderful, but it's not art. You know, art is where there's human, you know, if you put a paintbrush in an elephant's trunk, it's not, and they do something, and it looks like a very good abstract painting. It's not art because it's not deliberately made. It was made by the person that put the paintbrush in their trunk, but it has to be deliberately made, whose main function is to communicate an aesthetic statement. Now, who's got those rocks? Dorothy? Yeah. Okay. This is a feeling thing. There's 4 rocks in that towel, and we're going to pass them around, and 2 of those rocks are art and 2 of them are not art. So I just would like you to look at them and pass them around, and then when they get here we can talk about them. But so what I want to say, so communicate an aesthetic statement. The aesthetic part, it's like there's 2 orders to aesthetic. One is the 2 orders. There's a perceptive layer, you know, just like I see that, you know, we feel, we respond on a feeling level. And then there's the next level where you think about, you put a label on it. Oh, it's these glitters on that T-shirt, and I'm noticing it because it's a sort of a silvery color on black. You know, and this is being very simplistic, but you can see how it's something that makes you think, basically. And the statement is just like a set of meanings that, that have to do with the aesthetic statement. And the important thing is it's something that grabs your interest. But, you know, like a toothpaste ad might grab your interest, but you need it to hold your interest. And I just want to give you an example. Years and years and years ago, I was at the Seattle Art Museum, and there was a video playing. And it was just a man sitting at a table, nothing on the table, nothing on the, you know, it was very plain, black and white. He had a huge pile of rice. And what he was doing was counting out rice. And every time he got 50 grains of rice, he would make a pile. So he had tons of, you know, piles. And then when he got to 6 million, he counted 6 million, he stopped. So You know what it, 6 million, we know what that is about. So you can watch documentaries about the Holocaust, and that is very valuable. But that has stayed with me. Like I get it on a feeling level, and it makes, like, why these ordinary grains of rice? Why did he choose rice? And, there's a way you get 6 million that way, I think, or the way I did, than, reading about it and looking at piles of shoes, you get it too. But, so, with this definition, an idea is art. And not an idea in your head that doesn't get communicated is not art. But I can tell you this video that I saw, and you'll get it, right? But, so why have the video in the first place? I could just, the artist could just tell you about it. But you want something that, the closer you are to the real thing, like it probably was, he probably did it in an art gallery for I don't know how long it took. And then now there was a video, so I'm you're a bit distant from it, and now I'm telling you we're even more distant. And it still can have effect, but it has more effect, I think, the closer you are to the real thing. Am I very late?
It's 50 minutes now.
Okay. Okay, this is just an example of what art can be. It's the urban weaving project in Vancouver. People were using invasive species to do weaving. Get rid of the invasive species, but to use them. Instead of, in the city, you don't want to use what is more traditional, like cedar or something, and you can make art from them. So I'm going to have to go a bit quickly. And to change our behavior, we must change our mind. Lots of people say versions of that. So how do we change first of all, consciousness. Can we change our consciousness? What I would like to ask you, we probably don't have time to hear any examples, but what are examples in your own life where you realize that you are not seeing reality, like that you have a biased, prejudiced way of looking at the world? And I'll just tell you quickly one thing, and then I'm going to ask one person for their story because I like it. Years ago, I was renting a video, the days when you rented video, and I went up to the person selling, at the sales desk, and I was totally discombobulated because I couldn't figure out if they were a man or a woman. And it was not so much, this is in the 90s, it wasn't so much that they were, there's people who are trans. It's that I see people, I see how tall they are, how big they are, their race, their how old they are. You just notice all these things in a split second, and it's like, what's that that moat thing that comes down in a fortress, to stop us seeing really reality.
Drawbridge.
Yeah, no, it's that portcullis. Is it portcullis? Comes down like that. That's what I feel like I have in front of my face sometimes. When you read a book, and there's this odd character, and it's a doctor coming in, and then they say she. I think a lot of us, it just tells you. The art can do the same thing, I think. Linda, why don't you give me a break? Just tell your story about your consciousness.
What you want?
Yeah, I want you to tell it.
A couple of years ago, I was picking up my then 8-year-old grandson from daycare after school program. And one of the staff, the person who was signing my grandson out, was someone to me whose gender I couldn't figure out. And it was perplexing. So we get into the car, and I ask Elliot. So the person who signed us out, I'm not sure if that person is a man or a woman. And he said, Baba, why are you asking me these questions? What, you know, we're going on and on. And he said, you know, they're non-binary.
Wow.
And yeah, and that was an eye-opener for me, that from his perspective, it was obvious this person was non-binary. What was the issue for me? Why was I struggling with wanting to put this individual into a specific category? So yeah, it was a real eye-opener.
Yeah, it's and hopeful. How old is he? 8 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nada, I have to go a little bit quicker. Chihuahua, he's from the Congo, and he makes things, again, limitations. He makes things out of disused cell phones and things like that. And I love this image on the top image, because he has the same body. He's doing the same body posture as this man with a cell phone. That's such a typical gesture. And the ceremonial mask series that he does, it's called The Face of Coltane, because in Congo, coltane is what goes into cell phones, and there's huge civil wars and violence and death because of this. So here's this artist making this, and I love it because also this is in Belgium. That there's an African museum. I think they have like 129 artifacts from the from the Congo that they somehow got. So he goes around in his robot kind of demeanor to different places. So it's like a performance as well as an art piece. So this is like a mashup between performance, like it's a temporal thing, and also art objects. The main function of art, so I think the great art is to inspire us to think and to feel, and offer ways of how to think and feel, but not what to think and feel. And this is one of my, do people know this piece? Nadia Maya, she's a Canadian Indigenous woman. It's called Indian Act, and her and I think about 250 participants embroidered 56 pages of the Indian Act. And then this is the installation view. So some of the questions that I will not answer, but you can ask, is like, why didn't they embroider the whole thing? Why didn't they cover up the whole thing? They've used like white beads for the words and yellow beads for the background. And why did she use masking tape? Like just and sort of in a very sort of untidy way, not very neatly. Everything artists do, even if there's drips or things, it's like it's very intentional. There's a reason people do it, or you need to. I think it's good to assume that there's a really good reason. So I think there's reasons for that. So who is disrupting? Persimmon Blackbridge is an artist. She lives on Hornby Island. She's been working for decades. This is part of her Constructed Identities series. She uses mixed media wood carving with found objects to question how disability is framed as a fracturing of ordinary life rather than a normal expected part of it. So reframing disability. She has disabilities, so it's not just she's talking about other people, it's her own experience and people that she knows. And also the location can be disrupting. So where it is, this is Janet Eckelman. She does these gigantic, so you look up to the sky. This is at the Vancouver Trade and Convention Center in 2014, I think. And it's just, it's called, what is it called? Skies Painted with Unnumbered Sparks. The next one, does people recognize this one?
Yeah. Yes.
Frank Lewis. So it's, again, here's like this image, very like the Sistine Chapel, but it's under a bridge. I think over the gorge.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Just beautiful. And big figures. You know, so it's where it is that I think is really significant. This is Charles Simon's dwellings. This is in a disused lot in probably somewhere in New York, Bronx, something like that. He'd go to these building sites, and he'd take all day to build little dwellings for little people in these little crevices. And during the day, so people would come and they'd watch him. And there's a lovely video of him doing this, and there's this person that's been, you know, a boy that's been there all day, and somebody else comes up, and the boy starts telling this new person what Charles is doing. So it's as much about the process as it is about what it is, but it's where it is. And so all these are outdoors. I mean, they don't have to be outdoors, but you take it to the people. It's not a gallery. And this, of course, is Banksy. It's in the Gaza Strip, and it's an Israeli observation tower, and he's made a fairground depiction of it for the kids. Okay, I've got, after the next 5 people, I've got a conclusion, and then this wonderful thing that I'm going to show you. So Angela, would you like to come up and show your piece and just say briefly what? So you get to see the real art now. Here, I can help you with it.
You sent questions, so I'll try to answer the questions that you sent. The first one being, what was I thinking? Oh, no, we're good. No, we're good. What I was thinking
Angela,
was...
could you just move a little bit more over that way? Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, Kevin. When I entered my 50s a few years ago, I started to feel completely irrelevant. And I went to my doctor. I was feeling all sorts of things, and I said to her, gosh, I just feel like a vapor. And she was not impressed. She was the wrong person to admit that to. And I left. I actually went down into my car and I sat there and I cried. There was no prescription for that feeling, right? And I live in East Souk, and so I started walking every day to the ocean along the coast. And I did this for years, and I would talk to the ravens. And at one point in time, I realized the ravens are hopping along, and they're talking back to me. And that started to redefine my relationship with myself. So when I'm painting things, I care less about what I'm seeing, and everything is about what I'm feeling. And I have to disrupt certain things along the way so that you're not distracted. So one of the things I do is I try to eliminate or limit the depth of field in my paintings, because I don't care what is beyond the figure. I'm very, I pay careful attention to certain details like the shoes, the clothing. They're all rendered fairly realistically. But beyond that, I want to collapse the depth of field. So things are obliterated to sort of just give you a vibe, if you will, a feeling. This one was, I wanted a feeling of like urban decay, graffiti, all that sort of stuff. I paint a lot of portraits, and most of them, a lot of them are commissions, but the ones that aren't, it doesn't, I think, serve you very well to know that this is a portrait of me. It doesn't matter that it's me. And so I often, when I'm painting things like this, where the symbolic message of the painting is more important than who it is, I obscure the face. I do it all different sorts of ways. This way I used a mask. Sometimes I've been known to take like my favorite hot pink paint and just like swipe it across the face, and it drips down and completely obscures the face. I have all different ways that I almost always try to obscure the face a little bit. I disrupted, aside from the background, other little things, like one of the things I like playing around with a lot, I'm going to hold it up in a second so you can see, is undoneness. I try to keep things unfinished so you can see the process. And in this one, I was very faithful to this shoe, and that one I just left undone. which is sort of the vapor that I was feeling like.
And it makes you say, well, why did you, don't answer, but
Yeah.
like hopefully
Yeah.
other people will just see this rather than you.
Exactly.
And, like, why did you do that?
And there's 3 shoes, there's 4 hands, 2 faces. This was sort of the crone that's being, as I age, I feel so, less and less important, obliterating into the background, how powerful I used to feel. And then, and also in terms of seeing the process, this spill across here was fully accidental. I panicked when I did it. I cleaned it off the floor, I cleaned it off my desk, and then when I went to wipe it off the painting, I went, actually, it kind of works. And so that's a very raw part of the process. There's, there's sure intentional undoneness and whatnot, but then full-on accident. And the thing about disrupted realism is it often looks like an accident. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I think I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mary, I'm going to invite Mary up next. I went to Mary's house. Well, I went to everybody's house. And Mary's, she's got paintings in her closet, in this room, in that room, on every, hers is not a minimalist house. So, I could have, every single one of them is a disrupted realist example, but I just chose this one.
It's just small. Angela, yours is a hard act to follow here. So, basically, I had climbed up Mount Doug. I had my easel. It weighed 100 pounds. It was chock full of everything. It had materials. It had collage material. It had glues. It had scissors. It had paints. Probably a couple of types of paints. It had oils. I would have had oil sticks. I would have had acrylics. And so I actually slogged all the way up the friggin' top, and then just realized it was raining. And it was so it was a miserable day. So really this just reflects that kind of misery. But then underneath it, there's a book it's called something in the Lee. It's a lovely book that has lovely woodcuts. And I love the pieces of it, and I torn it out, and so part of this is collaged in with these woodcuts. And then there was also an Architectural Digest magazine. Actually, when I looked, I told Diana it was a Vogue. It wasn't. This was Architectural Digest. Looking at some of the gardens and nice things that can go on, but I just wasn't feeling it. So it's kind of a layers. My process is about layering and using different materials. Traditional plein air is usually done with it's very traditional. It's looking at what's in front of you. It tends to be very realistic for the most part. Although Georgia O'Keeffe is an example of a plein air artist, and not all of hers it looks realistic, but then you get closer. And there's also abstraction in there as well. So to me, doing this isn't just about abstraction, but it has some of that. It's putting some feeling into it. It's putting something that comes from, maybe it's a history of where the place is. Anyway, that's kind of sorry, I'm not as prepared.
No, and like it said, from your description, it sounded like you were burdened.
I was burdened. I was in a pissy mood.
This figure has to me a sense of being burdened, and I love I think this is a piece of paper, but it's almost like the person's stick, like an old.
It is paper. It's the story from this. The book. I think the colors are discordant. There's not a lot I love about this piece. So that's kind of the process. But part of the disruption, I think, that maybe Diana finds is that I'm using materials in what is considered a traditional setting of doing the plein airs and using kind of non-traditional materials.
Yeah, and there's things going on in them that are very interesting and a little bit maybe different, I think, than regular.
These paintings it's about disguise and camouflage, and so the people are covered and camouflaged in the foliage. A lot of the outlines are smudged, and I tried to blend them into the tree a bit. And
Is there any way you could hold it up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Diana, could you maybe help hold it up?
Sorry, yes. Okay.
okay. And another way of disrupting the realism is to use repeating patterns. I noticed. So her hair and the butt of the cougar repeat themselves. And then down here, this is a tree stump which repeats the legs of the man, which are sort of dissolving into the foliage.
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, and I look at several artists that I like. For this one, I like Georg Baselitz, and he's got a portrait in one of his books I have that just also smudged out a big part of the ear and across the face. So I wasn't as brave as that. I've only got a little one in there. Anyway, I don't know, that's about it really. I don't know what else. It's basically overlapping shapes, layers of paint, disrupted margins, and repeating patterns that are used to disrupt realism in this case.
Okay. And then Diane, do you want to come up? Diane Marie. And I'll move this out of the way. Is that all right?
Thanks, Diane.
In making Waterfall, I was thinking about where we come from and where we are going. In a world that feels increasingly agitated, I wanted to make something calming, enduring, and contemplative. In creating a space where stillness and reflection can in itself be a meaningful act of disruption. I wanted to remind myself, and perhaps others, that the circulation of water is as mysterious as the concepts of time and space. Water is forever flowing and transforming. Just as the water moving through our own veins is part of a much larger cycle that continues beyond us. I imagine the emerging form from Waterfall as abstractly human, fluid, and mythic, embodying both the symbolic and the deeply familiar. Living on Vancouver Island, I'm surrounded by water, winter waterfalls, and summer pathways shaped by water. I wanted to draw on these everyday experiences while also evoking a sense of awe and timelessness that one can sometimes feel when walking here. In a grand way, I hope the work might offer a momentary epiphany, a chance to access the cosmic lifelong view, and perhaps, even in a small, disruptive way, a reset. Waterfall inhabits a space between recognition and abstraction, and reflecting the circulation forces that we are part of and that are larger than ourselves.
And do you want to just say what the material is this is on? Because that's non-traditional.
So this is felt. It's felt, and I've worked with, like other artists. I was mentioning Pat Stern, who recently died, who spent her lifetime making images of waterfalls in a very, very abstracted way, working with the gravity that happens when you paint and put paint on canvas and it falls. So like that, I have used paint and gravity and the way that water just moves through any surface in these pieces. And so this is,
And is the background felt as well?
Pardon?
The back piece, is that felt too?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
helpful.
And talking about limitations, Diane's been working with this one material for what, 3 years? 2 years?
I do other things as well, but yes, I've enjoyed it.
What we see is mostly, it's wonderful. So,
Thank you, Diana.
thank you. And before I ask Connie to talk about hers, I want to ask Corey to, one of the things, as I said, I'm a lifelong learner, and I heard about social practice school, and I knew I needed to know about it, but I didn't know what it was. And Connie had told me about it, and I'm enrolled, and Connie and I are both students, and I would like to ask Corey Peters just to explain that, because it might be new to people what social practice is and how, if it fits in with this.
Yeah, I'll just do it quick. But yeah, so social practice, there's been a bunch of names for it, and kind of like a history kind of coming out of the 60s and 70s. But at its heart is like work where the medium that you're using is relationship. And so there might be paint, there might be felt, there might be all these other things, but the main medium that makes it social practice is relationship. Yeah, that's kind of a
And Suzanne Lacey, I
Is
heard
definitely
about
a
her.
social-
I remember her from way back in, but
Yeah.
I'd forgotten. It's all social practice work.
Yeah,
So all
yeah.
these projects, they're very exciting. I find it very exciting. You don't have something to put on your wall over your sofa, but you have an experience. So Connie is going to just talk about, she was here for an hour before embodying the project. You just move on.
Thanks, Diana. So I owe everything I do right now to Corey Peters, who is my mentor. I am nothing without her, so that is, and that's realism. But I wanted to just say a little bit about this project. So basically what I'm doing, but in conjunction with others, is stitching the names of folks who have died because of toxic drugs, so often called overdose in British Columbia. So about 20,000 people have died since 2015. Which invites the question of when will this be done. But I have a list of 700 names that came out of a show that was done in that little gallery in the Bay Center in April, and I was in the gallery for about 20 hours during that show stitching. And my invitation to people was to come and stitch with me, or to give me a name, or do both. And all of that happened. Like, so many people came and stitched with me. And so the project is continuing, and I'm sort of taking it to various groups right now and inviting them to also think about whether or not they'd like to stitch with me. And in fact, next week I'm going to go and work with Solid in their arts and crafts group. Solid is a drug users organization in Victoria that offers really great services, and they have an arts and crafts group, and so we're going to go and see if folks would be interested in doing some stitching. It may be a little bit close for some people who seek services there because they've probably lost a lot of people in their life, so that will be quite challenging. But the question, what was I thinking? Again, I have to say, like Alison, what was I thinking? But really what it was I also draw, and I was really interested in ways of humanizing data. And so I created a drawing that's about taking that, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a BC Coroner Service graph that shows death rates over the years. And it's a very small thing, and you look at it and you think, okay, well, what does that mean? So I did a huge drawing that takes that and creates a mark for every person who's died. And that's where this came from. I wanted to continue to think about ways to humanize data, but and this project evolved. Like, I would say to Corey, is this art? And she would say yes. I would say to Corey, is this social practice? And she would say yes. And so then I knew I was on the right track. But basically, it came to be a project that is fundamentally done in relationship with other people and can't be completed without other people, because it would be impossible to stitch 20,000 names without help. Even the list of 700 names is probably going to take me until I'm about 85. So that's where relationship is such a key component of this project. And I invite you to stitch with me if you would like. I have some cards. And if you have a name of someone who you know has died, I would love to have their name, and I would stitch their first name. Thank you.
Thank you. So, it has all the elements. Where Connie does it, the material, like the form of it, the content, you know, just everything about it, who's doing it. I'm just going to do one slide at the conclusion, and then I'm going to show this video that I have. So in a very contracted form, what I have been trying to at least suggest is that art of all kinds, and disrupted realism in particular, has potential to inspire us, not in what to think, I think that's really important, but to think and feel, and how to think and feel. It can grab us and hold us in uncertainty and paradox. And paradox is like where there's two truths that just don't go together. You can't explain a paradox, but you know, you get it in your body. And we need more of that in our life, I think, because that's what reality is. It's all of us, not just our minds. So anything that gives us a whole experience, I think, is so valuable, and mystery. At the same time, it can allow us to think for ourselves, invite us to put ourselves in others' shoes. And one of my favorite artists is Ai Weiwei. This was a temporary installation. He wrapped Berlin's concert hall with 14,000 life jackets that had been discarded on the island of Lesbos when people were coming from Turkey to Greece, yes. So, you know, talking truth to power here. So, if you would just bear with me, because I just want to play this. This is a performance by Chris Dirksen. She's a composer, a cellist. She calls herself a Cree Mennonite. She has both Cree and Mennonite in her background. She died while I was researching this. I mean, I would have played this anyway, but I mean, it was just totally tragic that she died. This is one of the one sentence about her. Her art was a reflection of her soul, poignant, powerful, grounded in heritage, and relentlessly innovative. And this is a performance with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra. You'll see two women. It's her and her wife, Rebecca Benson, who was critically injured in the car crash where Chris died. And Cosette Justo Valdez is the conductor. And I think she's now the conductor of the Vancouver Island Symphony Orchestra. Mm-hmm. So I just going to find it's longer than what I'm going to show you, but I'm just going to show you, we're just going to go to 1 minute. Let's see. No, just a sec, I have to go back because we don't have sound. Very important. I'm just going to show you a bit before so I can... No, I don't.
Maybe you want to click on the thing that's at the top here.
I had this all.
It's on.
Just get the sound. Does anybody know these?
Try playing it, Diana, and if it doesn't, there is a little sound icon on the YouTube.
Oh, you know what? You know what? I might not have my... I think that's so sad. Yeah. Dorothy, would you go and get, there's some disrupted snacks in the fridge that we can have. In the meantime,
Does that mean they were dropped on the way in?
sweet and sour.